Hi, Victor here, Creative Director on the Wayward Realms. Before we dive into the video, I wanted to go over a few things and set some expectations as well as give some insights into our development. We have made a lot of strides over the last year, but we've also faced many challenges. One huge challenge was the loss of our technical director, Julian. You may have noticed that my title has changed. Well, after Julian's passing, though honestly coinciding around the same time, we had reached a roadblock. Our efforts were not proving very fruitful, so we took a step to the side and we reevaluated our workflows and our technical structure. We reshuffled the teams into more focused groups. Ted took on the title of game director, and Kai and myself took on the roles of technical and creative directors, the titles that Julian and Ted had previously had. We also had to come to a realization that we were fighting too much with Unreal Engine. We shifted our workflow to be independent of the engine, and we saw leaps and bounds in terms of progress. However, that was really only getting us back on track and still left us behind overall. Now, delays are very common in the games industry. I'm sure you all are familiar with that. So it was never out of the realm of possibility and really almost an expectation. So how does this tie back into the devlog? Well, while we have the major and riskier systems up and running, graphically they aren't really to a point that maybe you guys might expect or that we are really happy with ourselves just yet. So we do want to make sure that is clear as we take a look at the systems. The important takeaways are that we can make a massive world. We can fill it with tons of NPCs who all have their own personality, jobs, and will react differently to the keywords based on that. Players can take and complete basic quests. Large dungeons can be procedurally generated. Massive cities with unique and varied houses can be created. And yes, even magic and the spell creation system are in, though still in a basic form and very basic graphically. As of September 30th, we also achieved a core goal from our Kickstarter, which is to have a working publisher build that we can take to potential investors in seeking further funding for the full release version. Now, it's important to note that's not the early access version. That's not what you guys will be playing. Publisher builds can be much rougher in overall everything. They can be missing graphical assets, be less optimized, be lacking a lot of content. They're merely there to showcase the game, how it functions, and the core gameplay loop. Our early access that we plan for you guys will have so much more. Now, as for a release date, we don't have one yet. To be honest with you guys, right now it's looking like we might be pushing past the end of the year goal that we had originally set. And I've said before, we want to give you guys something that will feel like Daggerfall, something that lives up to that expectation. And if we're not quite there yet, then we'd rather push it back than give you guys anything less. That being said, it is still early. We have a team that is very eager and very dedicated to bringing this game to life. So let's take a look at how it's been coming along and where we're at.
Hi, I'm Kai Kautz, Technical Director on the Wayward Realms. Scale is very important to our design philosophy. When you visit a town or a village or any location, we want it to feel real and lived in by thousands of people. And in order to do that, we are leveraging the power of procedural generation, but not in the way that you are normally used to. When procedural generation is typically employed in a game, let's say you're playing a roguelite and you make your way to a particular dungeon and you walk inside, and while the dungeon itself, the particular level that you're on, has the facade of stone or of brick or whatever is appropriate, the layout is randomly generated. It has a couple of rules that govern how many rooms should be there, how far you should travel, but otherwise there is no set layout for that space. The world of the Wayward Realms is not random. So what we are doing here is taking the information that drives that world and then using these tools to express the factual data in the world so that you can explore it and interact with it. And in order to demonstrate that in a way that is much more concrete, there are 4 buildings here that are the type of buildings that you would see in a town called Belfer Parva that's on Ijar. Now, the 2 on the ends, on the left and the right, are fairly distinct. You can see that the one on the left is an inn or a tavern. There are places to sit outside. There's storage, likely for foodstuffs or possibly for small batch ale or things like that. On the far right side, you can see that there is a storage area, but that this is otherwise mostly residential. And in the middle, while even from a glance or from far away, these 2 buildings look relatively similar, if you look a little bit closer, you'll see that there is quite a number of differences between them. The building on the left belongs to someone who sells fruit and has an apple tree growing in front of their home, or in front of their shop, rather. The one on the right belongs to somebody who is selling grain, and that shop has the necessary storage for grain to be sold. So, as you move through the world, the purpose of every single one of these buildings is what's going to determine what is put there. And that is not random information. That is information that is set for every single building in a given city or a given village, or even beyond buildings, certain areas of biomes or things like that. Of course, a large city is pointless if we don't have NPCs to bring it to life. While it's still a work in progress, our crowd system can currently keep track of several million NPCs in real time, whether they're currently visible to the player or all the way across the world. Their outfits can change depending on their profession, their social status, the time of year, and even whether they're going to work or have the day off. Being driven entirely by data in the game world, cities aren't the only place that people's lives and choices will cause buildings to show up. Naturally, some prefer a life in the countryside. While rolling green hills may be idyllic for some, it's not a plethora of villages that have us building systems to keep track of the lives of millions. One thing that has always been a central aim of the Wayward Realms has been ensuring that civilization has a real-world scale. Dialogue that changes based on an NPC's personality, their place in the world, and their relationship to the player is very important in creating a believable world. So let's look at how that works in-game. Here is a fairly abridged table of NPC attributes. There's a lot of stuff missing from this, but what you can see here is on the left we have an array of stats. That drives everything for how these NPCs actually come to be. So from there, their place in society, the job that they're capable of doing, their personality, their traits, and their speech are all determined. So for example, you can see that a fairly intelligent person might become a cartographer. A fairly perceptive person might become a hunter. A fairly charismatic person might become a count. In addition to all of this, we have access to a natural language processing system that allows us to essentially create a translation service that runs inside of the game itself. What that means is that we can take all of this information about this NPC, the things that they want to say, and we can create a very basic sentence that we then translate into something that is more fitting of the world or the people that you were talking to. So if we ask Sigamatan about her profession, she tells us, "Indeed, you see, I deal in the rarest, most exquisite aromatics, a purveyor of flavors most delicate and divine." She makes her living somehow selling spices. Now, the thing about this is that if we were to come here on a different day and talk to her again, she would say almost the same thing, but with a slight variety. The reason for that is that all of this is driven by actual game data. None of this is generative. It is translated. So we have a core sentence that this comes from that is unique to this NPC, their place in life, their profession, their goals, their wants, and then it is translated into something that is appropriate for the moment, which could change based on their feelings towards you, the player, could change based on other world events that happen. But ultimately, they will communicate the same information. It's not randomized, it's not generative, it is translated. Now, if we were to start again and instead ask her about her missing sword, let's see if this is something that we could help with. It appears that she left it in Phlogistal. Now that we have a quest, let's go check it out.
Hi, I'm Kyle Raymond, the production manager and one of the engineers developing the game. Combat is perhaps one of the most important systems we have in the Wayward Realms. The system is meant to be deep and granular, allowing players to choose skills that pertain to the playstyle they most enjoy. Our system focuses particularly on skills as there are no player levels. The more the skill gets used, the more they will level up, raising the related attribute with them. Another important part of our combat system is the use of both a guard and health bars. When a player is hit, guard will deplete first. When it is fully depleted, then the player character will take actual health damage. This is very bad, as the lower one's health goes, the more prone they are to injuries and diseases. Once it fully depletes, then the player will go unconscious. Over time, if enough injuries build up, they will be considered dead, and the player will have to reload. However, if the injuries have not been fatal, then the player enters what we call a, quote, vanquished state. Players can experience a variety of vanquished scenarios that the VGM will choose for them based on the context of their defeat. This allows for gameplay to continue and new story threads to form. These story threads could include waking up imprisoned by bandits, waking up in the care of a kind passerby, or perhaps awakening in the same spot you were defeated but with some of your equipment missing and a new quest to go and get it back. The variety will be limited in early access, but we will continue to expand on the variety of situations and the narrative possibilities as development progresses past our early access launch. But for now, let's take a look at another aspect of combat that we know you all have been very eager to see.
Hi, I'm Jared Campankel, one of the developers on the Wayward Realms. Magic is something that is rare in the Wayward Realms. It is feared and shunned by most of society. However, as an adventurer, players will not only be able to be magic casters, but a big part of the mage playthrough will involve exploring the world in search of new spell building blocks known as invocations, from which to build new, more powerful and unique spells. Now, players will be able to cast spells in a couple of ways: as one-time use minor spells, or as permanently known major spells. To create a major spell, players will have to do a ritual which may involve specific ingredients, being at a specific location, or perhaps even doing this ritual at a specific time. Our cosmos are in constant motion, and that will play a part in the spell creation.
The Wayward Realms sky is home to 7 major heavenly bodies, specifically the 7 moons that orbit around the world, one of which is the Sun. They each circle the world in their own unique trajectory, which changes throughout the year. As the seasons go by, not only will their positions and the effect they have on the world change, but the flora and the fauna of the world will also shift with the turning of the year. We ask that you keep in mind that everything you have seen in this video so far is still being actively improved, worked on, and fleshed out, and will continue to be throughout the early access and beyond. We don't have an exact release date yet, but we will keep you all updated as development continues. We have faced many challenges in the last year, and many will undoubtedly follow, but we remain extremely dedicated to delivering on the promise of the grand RPG. Thank you again for joining us on this grand adventure.